The story begins with Neoma, a beautiful young woman, staring out of the window of her family's modest home in a small African village. The weight of an impossible decision rests heavily on her shoulders. She knows she must marry soon, but her heart is torn between love and duty. The man her parents want her to marry is wealthy and influential, but she feels nothing for him. Instead, her heart belongs to another, a man who has nothing to offer but his love. Neoma's family is respected in the village, but they are not wealthy. Her parents, especially her mother, have high hopes that her marriage will elevate the family's status. They pressure her to accept the proposal of Chief Uchenna, a much older man with considerable wealth and power. Despite her reservations, Neoma feels trapped by the expectations placed on her. As days pass, Neoma becomes increasingly burdened by her family's expectations. Her mother's constant reminders of what the marriage could mean for them begin to weigh heavily on her. She begins to lose sleep, haunted by the thought of a loveless marriage. Neoma's true love, Chijioke, is a young man with a kind heart and a strong spirit, but he has little to offer in terms of wealth. They meet secretly, aware that their love is forbidden. Chijioke begs Neoma to run away with him, but she hesitates, knowing the consequences would be dire for both of them. Chief Uchenna begins to shower Neoma's family with gifts, promising a life of luxury and comfort. Her parents, blinded by the prospect of wealth, continue to pressure her to accept his proposal. Neoma's resolve begins to weaken as she sees the joy and relief in her parents' faces. Chijioke gives Neoma an ultimatum: either they run away together, or he will leave the village forever. His words cut deep, and Neoma is torn between her love for him and her sense of duty to her family. The thought of losing Chijioke forever terrifies her, but the consequences of running away seem insurmountable. Chief Uchenna formally proposes to Neoma in front of her family. The village celebrates the news, seeing it as a great honor for Neoma and her family. Neoma, however, feels as though she's being led to a life sentence. Neoma's family begins preparations for the wedding, and the village is abuzz with excitement. Neoma goes through the motions, choosing her wedding attire, and preparing for the ceremony, but inside, she feels numb. The night before the wedding, Neoma sits alone, contemplating her fate. She writes a letter to Chijioke, explaining why she cannot marry him and expressing her undying love. With tears streaming down her face, she realizes that she has made her decision. On the day of the wedding, the entire village gathers to witness the union of Neoma and Chief Uchenna. The ceremony is grand and beautiful, but Neoma feels detached, going through the motions with a forced smile. As Neoma recites her vows, she struggles to hold back her tears. She glances at Chijioke, who is standing in the crowd, watching her with a look of devastation. Neoma feels her heart break, but she knows there is no turning back. The wedding feast is a lavish affair, with food, music, and dancing. Neoma sits beside Chief Uchenna, playing the role of the dutiful wife, but her mind is elsewhere. She feels trapped, suffocated by the life she has chosen. Chief Uchenna takes Neoma to a luxurious resort for their honeymoon. Despite the beautiful surroundings, Neoma feels nothing but emptiness. She goes through the motions, trying to please her husband, but her heart remains cold. Back in the village, Neoma's life is transformed by wealth. She now lives in a grand house, wears fine clothes, and is respected by all. But the opulence only deepens her sense of isolation. She has everything she could have ever dreamed of, but the emptiness in her heart remains. She finds herself reminiscing about the simpler, happier times with Chijioke, and the pain of her lost love gnaws at her soul. As time passes, the emotional distance between Neoma and Chief Uchenna grows. He is often busy with his affairs and seems content, but Neoma feels increasingly trapped in her loveless marriage. She begins to avoid his company, retreating into her thoughts and memories of Chijioke. The coldness between them becomes palpable. The villagers start to notice the tension between Neoma and Chief Uchenna. Rumors begin to circulate about the true state of their marriage. Neoma's once pristine image starts to tarnish, and she becomes the subject of gossip. The whispers follow her wherever she goes, adding to her sense of entrapment and loneliness. Chijioke, who had left the village after Neoma's wedding, returns unexpectedly. He has become successful in his own right, though not in the traditional sense. He is still the same kind-hearted man, but he now carries himself with a quiet confidence. His return stirs old feelings in Neoma, and she begins to question her choices more deeply. Neoma and Chijioke start meeting in secret once more. The passion between them is reignited, and they are drawn together by the force of their unresolved love. But the affair is dangerous, as Neoma is now married to a powerful man. They know they are playing with fire, but the pull of their love is too strong to resist. Chief Uchenna begins to suspect that something is amiss. He notices Neoma's frequent absences and her distracted demeanor. His suspicions grow, and he starts to have her followed. The tension in their marriage escalates, with Uchenna becoming more controlling and Neoma feeling increasingly trapped. Chief Uchenna eventually confronts Neoma about his suspicions. The confrontation is explosive, with Uchenna accusing her of infidelity. Neoma denies everything, but the confrontation leaves her shaken. She realizes that her affair with Chijioke is not only dangerous but could also lead to disastrous consequences for both of them. Despite their best efforts to keep the affair secret, Neoma and Chijioke's relationship is eventually exposed. The news spreads through the village like wildfire, and Neoma becomes the center of a scandal. Her once respected status is shattered, and she is ostracized by the very people who once admired her. The fallout from the scandal is severe. Chief Uchenna, humiliated and enraged, seeks revenge. He uses his power and influence to ruin Chijioke's life, stripping him of everything he has worked for. Neoma, overwhelmed by guilt and shame, watches helplessly as her life falls apart. Neoma realizes that she cannot continue living a lie. She makes the difficult decision to leave Chief Uchenna, knowing that it will cost her everything. She also knows that she can no longer be with Chijioke, as their love has brought nothing but pain and destruction. She decides to leave the village and start anew, hoping to find peace. Neoma leaves the village, embarking on a journey of self-discovery and healing. She travels to a distant town, where she is unknown, and begins to rebuild her life. Though she is haunted by the past, she is determined to find peace and redemption. In the new town, Neoma starts a small business, using the skills she learned from her mother. She finds solace in her work and begins to forge new friendships. Slowly, she starts to heal from the wounds of the past and gains a sense of independence and self-worth. Years later, Neoma reflects on her journey. She has found peace within herself, but the scars of her past remain. She realizes that while she made many mistakes, those experiences have shaped her into the woman she is today. She is stronger, wiser, and more at peace with herself. As Neoma finds closure, she receives an unexpected visitor, Chief Uchenna's daughter from his first marriage. The young Chief Uchenna's daughter, Amoka, arrives unannounced, bringing with her news that shakes Neoma to her core. Amoka reveals that after Neoma left, Chief Uchenna's health deteriorated rapidly. He became a shell of the powerful man he once was, consumed by regret and bitterness. On his deathbed, he confessed that he never truly loved anyone after his first wife and that his harshness towards Neoma was born out of his own insecurities and guilt. Uchenna had left Neoma a letter, which Amoka now hands to her. Neoma reads the letter, her hands trembling. In it, Chief Uchenna admits to his many failings, both as a husband and as a man. He apologizes for the pain he caused her and acknowledges that he knew about her love for Chijioke all along. He writes that, in the end, he realized that he could never force love, and his attempts to control Neoma only pushed her further away. The letter concludes with Uchenna's final wish, that Neoma finds true happiness, even if it's without him. Moved by Uchenna's letter, Neoma realizes she needs to confront her past fully to move on. She decides to visit Chijioke, who is now living a quiet life in a nearby village. Their reunion is bittersweet. Both have been through so much, and while the passion of their youth has faded, a deep, enduring bond remains. They talk openly about their past, their mistakes, and the love that, though once vibrant, was overshadowed by the consequences of their choices. After their reunion, Neoma makes the final decision to leave the past behind and focus on the future. She knows that while she and Chijioke will always share a special connection, their paths have diverged too much to rekindle their relationship fully. Instead, they part as friends, both content with the lives they've rebuilt. Neoma returns to her new town with a renewed sense of purpose and inner peace. Years later, Neoma receives an unexpected gift from Amoka, an old photograph of Chief Uchenna and his first wife, along with a note from Amoka herself. The note expresses gratitude to Neoma for bringing some semblance of peace to her father's final days and for teaching her that love, no matter how complicated, is a force that shapes lives in ways one can never fully predict. Neoma, now much older, reflects on her life. She thinks about all the choices she made, the pain and the joy, the love and the loss. She understands now that every decision, no matter how difficult, led her to where she is today. She feels at peace with her past, knowing that she has lived a full life, rich with experiences that shaped her into the person she is now. She finds solace in the knowledge that love, in all its forms, has been the guiding force of her life. As Neoma's story comes to an end, she writes a letter of her own, a letter to her younger self, full of wisdom and compassion. She writes about the importance of following one's heart, the inevitability of making mistakes, and the strength that comes from facing the consequences of those mistakes head-on. She encourages her younger self to be brave, to love deeply, and to never lose hope, no matter how dark the journey may seem.